everyone, to today's session. We have an incredible guest. We have Gabor Stramb, who is going to talk to us about how can we pass the PMP exam in 8 weeks. So I will share the presentation with you. Just one moment. I hope you can see it.
Short question, Elena.
Yes,
here's Marco
please.
speaking.
Hi, Marco.
Do you share the presentation afterwards, or?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Exactly. So please just tell me if you can see the presentation at the moment.
Yes, we can. Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Perfect. So welcome once more. Today we are from the local group Darmstadt together with Gabor Stramb, who is our external guest and who is going to talk to us about the PMP exam, one of the most known and most appreciated and important project management exams, which are certifications. And we have seen so many. I can imagine on LinkedIn so many people celebrating so much after they passed it. There is a reason why they celebrate so much, because of the difficulty, because of the a lot of effort that you need to put. So today Gabor will help us, will guide us through that procedure, how we can do it, how we can make it, how we can pass this exam, and not just pass it, but also in 8 weeks. Today's agenda is so at the beginning, as you can see, we are doing a small introduction. We are going about PMI Germany, about the local group Darmstadt, code of conduct, and the introduction of today's speaker will be taken over by Gabor. And then the most important part of today is the presentation from Gabor, and then at the end comes the information on the next events, the rating of this event, PDU claim code, and the closure. Starting from the suggested conduct, so it would be great if you could mute your microphones when you enter this meeting room, so that Gabor can have full focus, everyone can have a full focus also on Gabor. Please use your full name if you would like to get PDUs. It is very important for us for the identification. If you would like to, you can share your video. You can use the chat window to ask questions and comments. If you would like to, you can share your LinkedIn in the chat box, and this will give the chance for the other ones to invite you on LinkedIn, to connect with you. So feel free to connect with each other. These events are definitely made for interacting, for networking with each other as well. You are invited to contact our speaker in case of any questions, even after the event. This session is recording, as you can see, and we do not allow AI bots in the meeting, which is why, in case we see an AI bot in the meeting, we will have to remove it from the meeting. Thank you for the understanding regarding that. And on the last point, I think it's very obvious, and it's a default: be nice and professional with each other. The PMI Germany chapter is a very diverse international community with more than 20 local groups in 5 different regions. There are more than 3,300 members, and different events, working groups, and projects are organized on a local and on a regional level. Local group Darmstadt, as you can see here, somewhere here, it is found in the central region, and on the map, if you're coming from Germany or also from abroad, maybe you know Frankfurt, it's underneath Frankfurt. Local group Darmstadt, we are an English-speaking community with 6 volunteers coming from 5 countries. We organize every month 2 free events, 2 free online events, and 1 face-to-face roundtable in Darmstadt, and we had 2,400 participants roughly from the inception, so from the beginning, with 60 attendees, 60 people who attended more than 10 times. And this is actually important for us, the colleagues who come, or the participants who come more than once. It is very nice to see the retention rate, because it means that we hopefully provide interesting content for you all. We have a LinkedIn group with almost 400 members. Feel free to join so that you get informed also regarding further events. this is from my side. So Gabor, it's up to you now to take over the presentation, the sharing. So today's speaker is Gabor Stramb, and he is going to tell you a little bit more about himself and about the PMP.
Thank you very much, Elena. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to take over the screen sharing. I'm going to look into my left-hand side of the screen because I have a secondary monitor. So if I'm not looking into this direction, that's not because I'm disrespecting anyone, just because I have a secondary monitor here. And normally I'm running sessions on Zoom, but I think as the housekeeping rule also mentioned, yeah, whatever, any question you're going to have, please put it into the chat. I think we're going to be able to see it. I'm definitely going to be able to see it on my right hand side, and also what you can expect that I'm going to definitely stop time for time when I'm going to ask you questions, and you're going to be also express your opinions and also questions towards what I'm planning to share on the screen. Yeah, and I think with that, let's let me share my screen. Okay, so I'm going to use this one. So I hopefully is it visible? I think should be visible now. Can you guys see the screen? Just
So
a
we
quick
can
yes.
see
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So what is the plan for today? So what I planned is that I'm gonna give you guys a very short introduction. I'm already gonna give you some updates, some admin items, which I recently noticed on the PMI website, and I felt like that is very important to share with you guys as well to make sure you are aware. Also, technically, yeah, let's go into it because that's going to be key most important thing. So in terms of the agenda, we'll do a very short introduction for you guys, a couple of admin items. That will be a drag and drop exercise which we're going to do together, and then a key learning will be around the 8-week study plan. Then I'm going to go into certain level of details. So first I'm going to give you guys my way of interpreting the PMP and how you can actually really accelerate this within 8 weeks. And after that, we're going to go into the secret sauce. And the secret sauce will go into that what you should do week by week, technically, what to do, when to do, how to do. That's why I'm planning to go into that level of details. And then we're going to do questions together, because my philosophy here that you're going to be able to learn a lot of things through different materials, but if you're not practicing it, it's not going to be, syncing on the right way, which you need for the exam. And I just checked. So I prepared 4 questions we're going to do together. There is also a certain way to do questions, which will make your life way much more easier for the exam. And then there will be Q&A, which is also part of Elena's agenda as well. Now, one thing is already certain here. So I have this 8-week study plan, which you can download as well. So I'm going to give it to you, let's say, for free. It's actually been running through my newsletter. So that's something I'm going to put the link into the chat so you can have it afterwards. Also, this slides will be available. So in that case, you're going to have anything and everything to make it happen in 8 weeks. Because I would say, so just a couple of facts before I get started with the introduction. An average student preparing for the PMP spent 4 to 6 months in exam preparation, which is a lot of time. And I would say most people spend a lot of time because they not have the right level of clarity. Also a fact from PMI, 1 out of 3 people are passing the PMP every single week. Okay, I'm not here to scare you. I'm not here to depress you, but that's the reality. You see lots of success stories everywhere, but the reality is only 1 out of 3 people are passing, and which means that we really need to be prepared because lots of people try. I came across not just second timers, third timers, or people doing it the 4th attempt as well. That's also reality, by the way. So you need to be prepared. And what I can already tell you, this is not all about how much you know, but instead how soon you can adopt to the way how PMI created the mindset. And what the mindset really is, that's technically the logic PMI built behind processes, behind waterfall, behind agile. The sooner you started to understand this, the easier this will get, because if your goal is to try to learn anything and everything through the materials you have, which I'm going to give you some suggestions as well, please be reminded you are on the path to become a PMP professor, okay? And what the PMP professor is doing, talk about PMP 4-5 hours every day, and unless that's your goal, this will be a very long and lengthy exercise, all right? So let's go in and let's give you guys a very short introduction. So my name is Gabor Stramb. I'm a Hungarian living in the UK. And I'm a PMP with more than a decade of experience in project management, currently working as a program manager. Some of you might see my LinkedIn profile, which I put it into the chat. But my story goes, so the PMP took me 3 years and I failed 2 times. And what does this trying to mean here is that was something I wasn't really proud of in the beginning, but now I really realized that I tried this in many different variations with certain different products, going into boot camps, going into books, going into courses. And for every single time I felt prepared, but somehow I never get the expected result until the last attempt when I was actually being started to focusing on that, okay, I failed again. Do I need another book? Do I need another course? But eventually all those courses and materials are almost exactly the same. So what should I do differently? And in the end, I was started to think about that. If I'm not going to do something different, I'm not going to get a different result. So in the end of the day, my focus shifted into being more results driven. And the results mean that how can I cope with the difficult questions? How can I improve my testing score on a consecutive basis? And the more I started focusing on, the easier that will get. And technically, so I passed the exam, finally. And ever since I started to working with people to make sure they also adopt into the idea. Now, I'm also working with people, running study groups, which you guys might can even look into later on. Also working with different PMI chapters as well. So I put it into the bottom here, and then I'm glad I'm also here in the Darmstadt chapter as well. Also, I'm very proud of that. I'm labeled as a project management top voice on LinkedIn, which is amazing. Something which is people recognizing the content I put out there, which is great. Also running a newsletter which has a little bit over 9,000 subscribers. But altogether, I would say that's all about my 2 minutes frame here. So let's go ahead and give you guys some announcements, okay? And the announcement goes very recently, so less than 7 days ago, PMI changed the examination fee for people who are not PMI members. So that's point number 1, okay? So this is technically went up to $100 in a blink of an eye without anyone being notified. So just to make sure you are aware, now what does this try to mean? That technically PMI is really forcing everyone to make sure that they are actually been getting the PMI membership. The sooner the better, or just getting more and more benefit of that. But please be reminded that the no-membership fee is actually been increased. Now, the second thing which I noticed is that, so the eligibility criteria for the PMP exam, so far it was actually been 2 different things, that if you have a high school diploma or a secondary diploma and / the bachelor degree. Now, the bachelor degree, so that was the most, that's technically applicable for 99% of the people. So you have 3 years of experience, which is a 36 months and 35 hours of training. Now, the other one was 5 years and still at 35 hours. Now, they come up with something completely new, which I haven't got a clue what does that mean, just to telling you. The truth is that, so they say if you have this GAC accredited program degree, you only need 2 years of experience plus 35 hours of training. Now, what does this GAC accredited program means? I don't know, but maybe that will be the follow-up for the chapter to find out for the next session. Because personally, I haven't got a clue, but just to be aware, just to make sure you guys are aware, there is a change on the PMI website, especially on the requirements side of things. So they not to make the design. There's also, I think that's a significant change because previously everybody said you need to have at least 3 years of work experience, leading project experience, whereas now it's going down into, so some cases can be down into 2 years as well. Okay. Okay, there are already some questions into the chat. Okay.
Yes, so I didn't want to interrupt you. Yes, Gabor. Can these methods be applied to other PMI certifications like program management?
So what we are going to discuss, this 8 weeks plan, is very smoothly working for CAPM and for PMP. Now, any other certification. So overall, I think in terms of the concept which I'm planning to share with you, can use the same concept, but each certification has different prerequisite, different learning path, which, since I'm not aware of, it might not be applicable. But in terms of the concept, which is technically I mentioned to you beginning, that if you wanted to learn anything and everything, I have bad news for you because that will take extremely long amount of time. And in that case, you are in the PMP professor, or that case, that certification professor path. But anyways, yeah, that's something I can also look into that separately. All right, so that's in terms of the updates.
And Thomas wrote, sorry to disturb you, that GAC means Global Accreditation Center, and it means that universities can get accredited by the PMI Global Accreditation Center if their programs are in accordance to the project management, teaching, so to say. But Thomas also wrote there is no university in Germany which has this accreditation. So if you're living in Germany, most probably you need 3 years of experience, I can guess.
Yeah.
It's the safe side.
Yeah. So let's move on, and I'm going to break down this 8 weeks preparation explanation through, to understand the mindset, understand the concept, and where we start. I really like to calling it, there are no surprises. Now, what I mean by there are no surprises is that, so we know exactly what is the exam all about, which means we know what we need to prepare. What we don't know is the passing rate. So, just telling you, I don't know the passing rate, and nobody knows because PMI do not tell it to anyone. So if you find a guru on Facebook, if you find a guru on LinkedIn or Reddit or Quora saying 60%, 70 or whatsoever number, very subjective number, my friend, unless it's coming from PMI, I think you should come, understand what is coming from the source. So, we know the materials, we don't know the passing rate, but we know exactly how every question is looking like. So I can predict to you what your questions you're going to get on the exam. Makes it very, very, clearer to prepare, which I'm happy to show it to you on the screen, which is available to anyone. So I'm not, hiding or showing you something, which is a not necessarily a legit document or information. Is all on the PMI website, which I'm going to go through in a second. Now, before we going into the learning concept itself, it's very important to understand the difference between a CAPM and PMP, because, the CAPM, you don't have any project management experience, you can go and apply. And then for the PMPs, you need to have 36 months leading project management experience. Now, I just wanted to slightly emphasize that you need to have project management experience, because recently I came across people, like, here's a guy said, I was an accountant for 5 years. I would like to do my PMP. Well, okay, my friend, we need to look into your experience one by one, because from that 5 years, you need to squeeze out 36 months. Now, PMI will never say that all these, experiences needs to be consecutive or needs to be, at least 3 months for each role. Technically, PMI will say that even they accept, 36 times 1 month projects you have done in the past 5 to 8 years. But just to make sure that you guys also aware that, if you have, I don't know, I was part of a testing team and I was doing testing, I want to do my PMP. That's not necessarily the right path for you just yet, because you need to prove your experience. I'm not, this is not for me, this is for PMI. And it all depends on PMI if they're going to accepting it. But give you a good example. So I do see a huge influx of secondary school teachers accepted by PMI. And is there anything wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that, because have you been part of, let's say, your school projects, or have you done a school trip? Is it a project? Absolutely is a project as per the definition. And there can be many different examples, but you need to be sure that you fill out, you're completing your experience in a way that PMI understand and recognize, your experience. Because simply saying that I was an IT manager for the past 10 years, now I'm doing my PMP, fine, but please make sure you emphasize correctly what PMI sees as a project management. Okay, good. How we are tracking so far? If you can give me a quick thumbs up into the chat. Is it possible or something what you can do here? Okay, yes. Great. There's a, okay, so people can raise their hand. That's fine.
Yes, and they can thumbs up. Yes.
Okay, good. Now that is something I'm going to asking you time for time, because that's how we can make this session very interactive. So now we are actually been having the clarity around this prerequisites. Amazing. Now let me show you guys my learning concept here. And learning concept goes 2 things here. One in the bottom says this is not a university studies, and that's something you need to expect or accept right away. And the second thing is that you need to have a mindset. And the mindset is that the higher I score, the likelihood that I pass is also higher. And that's the key thing you need to remember. Why? Because that's exactly what experience showed to me. Whoever I worked with or not worked with or came across or sent someone a LinkedIn message that, oh, you passed the exam, how was your testing score? technically everyone confirmed to me that as soon as you get closer to a 75-80% passing rate before the exam, that's technically guaranteed your exam success. That's the only kind of guarantee or close to guarantee we can give it to you, because we don't know the passing rate. Even though if you go to the PMI website, the PMP handbook and the exam content outline explicitly say every single person will have a unique passing rate, which means you can have a lower passing rate or you can have a higher passing rate. We don't know, and PMI do not tell it to anyone. That's how they can really, get the integrity of that exam and the high value of that. Okay, so that's the first thing here. And also the second thing, which I think you need to make sure is, sink in. Can you learn 100% going in? You can't. Can you leave with 100% results? You can't have 100% results either, because PMI will never give you anything. They're not going to give you questions. They're not going to give you a percentage that how you performed. So you need to, I would say, really find a good enough score, which is around, I would say, that 80% passing rate. And if you look around any kind of mock exam simulator program, all of them are set to 75-80% because we all have the same information. Now, going into one layer down, what this 80% means, 80% means that you score 140 out of 180, which means you're going to screw up 40 questions and still pass the exam. Okay? You're going to screw up 40 questions and still pass the exam. So what does that mean? So there will be things which you're going to learn very well. There will be things which you're not going to learn that level of depth, and it's fine. Because what is the goal of this exam? The goal of this exam is that you understand how to run a waterfall project from beginning to an end, how to run an agile project from beginning to an end through Scrum. You understand the difference between agile versus waterfall. You know on a high level what hybrid is, and then focusing on certain things where agile waterfall collide, which is communication, stakeholder management, conflict management, leadership. This is the 4 areas where PMI really going to make you the challenge. Because, and what does this mean? So simply PMI will not ask you, let's say, tons of procurement questions, tons of quality questions, and tons of calculation questions. Let's do this little quick survey here. So what do you think, how many calculation questions you're going to get on the exam? If you have a number, let's say less than 10, more than 10, can you put this into the chat very quickly? What do you think is like, how many earned value questions we're going to have on the exam? More than 10 or less than 10? You can put it into the chat. I don't know your number, maybe 5 or maybe 10 or 12. Or 10 EVM questions. Less than 10. Okay. Perfect. Now that's plenty enough information, because what I can tell you already, that if you're lucky, 2 calculation questions on the exam. If you're not lucky, you're going to get 0. I got a guy last week, got 0 questions EVM. So, I mean, and if you go into an online course which will go into cost management into 4 or 5 hours of learning, you're doing so many, and then you even started to learn memorizing all those formulas. But at the end of the day, you're going to get 2 questions. So I would say if it's already stressing you out, I'm giving you the permission, you let it go. What will happen? Nothing. Because it will be part of that 40 questions which you're going to fail. Because trust me, PMI will give you scenarios which are not even explained anywhere, and that's why it's actually been so difficult. But we're going to touch base on that. But what does this mean? I try and tell you that you can let it go things, because PMI will asking you only certain things nowadays. They cannot ask you anything and everything all together. And then the calculation questions are, I say, good examples of that. So still, how are we going to start this? So we start with the exam content outline, which will explicitly tell you how the questions are looking like, which I'm going to show in a second. And then you're going to do a learning cycle, and you're going to do a validation cycle. Why you need to do this separately? Because number one, you cannot learn everything by heart. The knowledge you're going to grasp is, I would say, 1/3 of the story to passing the PMP. Because you're not going to get explicitly exactly the same questions which you learn through your course, through your book, and so on and so forth. So I would say that going into this 8 weeks example, which I'm going to go into more details today, 4 weeks should be plenty enough to go through your course or go through your learning material. It can be your course, can be your boot camp, can be your training, can be your book, whatever that is. 4 weeks should be plenty enough. Now the secret sauce is, don't do any questions. Don't do any questions because that will slow you down. Why? Because the goal is the exam is that you have an end-to-end view, not an in-depth knowledge on everything. And then the problem is that, let's say you go through, okay, waterfall scope management, you spend a week on it, you do 15 questions in the end. If I score 10 out of 15, I'm very happy. I move on, I'm motivated. But as soon as I score 3 out of 15, you go like, ooh, I need to redo this again. And then you redo this again, another 3 days pass, you do another test, 7 out of 15. Oh my God, I need to invest more time in. So you redo it again, and then you score miserable 9 out of 15, and you give up and say, okay, I need to have a break because I not even remember what I did, 3 weeks ago. And then maybe I need to search on LinkedIn to find some good plans, what works for other people. But here is the thing. You're not going to learn everything by the single go, but the goal is that you have an overall understanding of what PMI exposes a knowledge, which 4 weeks should be plenty enough, because technically you need to spend another 4 weeks just doing questions. Why? Because you have to do questions anyway. There will be no free text, there will be no essay question, or just a second. I got the PMI curse coming up to me now. So, so you're going to have, always predefined questions, predefined answers, which will be a multiple choice, 1 out of 4 or 2 out of 5. The question will tell you how many, if it's, let's say, 2 out of 5 or even more. But that's why you equally need to spend time, because you need to create, let's say, a mental toughness and a mana to actually be able to do 180 questions within 230 minutes. Which means that this is a race. If I do the calculation, you have 1 minute over every question. So you need to be really, really prepared. And simply be flipping the pages of the penbook guide plus doing questions will not get you there. And I'm going to explain it to you today. But how? How we are tracking so far? Is this useful so far? In this case, if you can give me a quick thumbs up, I think that would be great. Okay, good. Now, I think if somebody have a question, just to make sure it's not confusing, if you let's say you raise your hand, either is in that case, put your question into the chat. In that case, that would be great. Unless we say the question. All right. So before I move on the exam preparation materials, I mentioned to you guys that we know exactly every question, how it's looking like on the exam, and I'm not telling you so. Do you guys want me to show it to you on the screen very quickly? Okay, Elena is nodding, Thomas is nodding, so we're gonna do it, okay? So let me show this. So we go PMI website, okay? So this is not a huge, so it's not hidden anywhere. So it's on PMI website, you go there, and you go PMP, very nicely designed website, amazing new logo, even though there are many people complaining about it. Anyways, and you scroll down and you go into this section here, path to PMP certification, and you go into the last bullet point, take the exam. And here is it, what to expect, which is AKA the exam content outline. You download, okay? And you're gonna have this lovely document, which is, even though data 2021 January, still latest and the greatest. If you are worrying that PMI might changing this, they say that they're gonna inform everyone 1 quarter in advance, meaning that today is the 18th of September, which means that this definitely not gonna change till January. If they're not in a hurry announcing anything by end of September, most likely by July or June next year, this will not change. So don't worry about it. This will stay as is. Okay, fine. Now you go page number 6, okay? So page number 6, which is an amazing thing. How can I have a pen here? Anyways, so you're going to have a breakdown in terms of percentages, how the questions are distributed, which is great, but not an aha moment. The aha moment comes here. It says half of the examination predictive, half of the examination agile hybrid. And you go like, okay, but what does that supposed to mean? It means 90 questions waterfall, 90 questions agile hybrid scrum. And you might ask the question, is this set in stone? And I can tell you, 1001%. So you go in your LinkedIn, there is your friend who said, all of my questions were agile on the exam. All of my questions on hybrid, were hybrid on my exam. Well, I not blame you, my friend, but you not remember, okay? You're not gonna get a printout either. So let's trust what is coming from the source. So if you're asking me, whatever other people are saying, it's fine. I listening to you, but you not remember. You're not gonna have photographic memory of all the 180 questions you're gonna get and telling me otherwise, but this is coming from PMI. And PMI tell this to all the students. See what I mean? So that's why PMI simply not have enough questions to testing you in earned value management. We talked about these calculation questions. Why? Because, you know, knowing how to do communication, stakeholders, leadership is way much more important because, for example, earned value management, well, every company do this differently anyways. Worst case scenario, you will Google it up, and that's the reality, and PMI realizes. And now if you know, and that's why I would say it's getting more and more interesting. So 90 this, 90 that, okay? Now, before I move on, because there is even more details into it, anyone has any questions? How we are tracking so far? All good? If good, then quick thumbs up. But if you have a question, feel free to raise it now, because maybe other people are also interested that something might not be clear. But I'm telling you, this is set in stone. Half of this, half of that. Okay? Good. Because there is more. And the more is coming here. So PMI defines the domains, and each domain you have certain amount of tasks. Now, so this is 14. And how can I get a pen here on the screen? Can I have a pointer? Video effect. Anyways, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just simply voice it over. So what PMI say that I will test you every single task in every single domain. And what does this trying to say? That this people domain, I'm going to put this into the chat. So people domain, that is domain, that is 42%, which is 76 questions. Okay. Now, there are 14 tasks, and I'm going to show it to you. So there are 14 tasks. Yeah, 14 tasks, which means that for each task, you're going to have 5 questions minimum. Now, not me telling you, PMI telling you everyone, which means the secret sauce is if you understand each and every bullet point here, you know exactly how the questions are looking like for the exam, because that's what PMI will testing you. 5 questions for each and every task if you do the math. And even better, if you go and ask any of the guys who recently passed the PMP, you are able to not just see how you performed against the big domains, but as soon as you click on your exam details, PMI will give you a results how you perform against each and every task. And they're giving you a form of 5-bar charts, 5 bars coming right next to the task, which is really backing up the same idea, which means if the middle one is color-coded, that means you answered 3 questions correctly. So, okay, that's good. But can you start with this? No, you can't, because you still need to go through all the materials to after that focusing on this small amount, which is going to be here on the exam, because the exam is this, not all this. When you read very carefully the PMI website, they say, here are the reference materials. They never said, this is what you need to learn by heart. They said the reference materials, but the exam is the exam content outline, not all the reference materials out there. So when I go back to my learning model of 8 weeks, 4 weeks is complete enough to go through all the materials, and then another 4 weeks is plenty enough just focusing on this task, doing questions against them, and get prepared. So in that way, technically, you know what to expect. Okay, is this useful? Is already giving you guys a bit of a secret sauce here. Hope this will give you the clarity, because this will give you the clarity that you do not need to spend awful lot of time everywhere. You need to have the learning material, and after that you need to focusing on the tasks. Perfect. Any questions before we move on? I take it there are no questions. All right, so that's why I would say we know all the questions, and if you go one by one, like the first one, interpret, great. What are the sources of conflicts of Agile? What are the sources of conflicts of Waterfall? Why you need to solve them, how you need to solve them, and singly and quickly in 1 minute. So on Waterfall, the biggest source of problem, people are not willing to work together. Why? We're gathering a set of strangers, and then project manager, you're trying to make it work. That's the reality. Agile, the biggest source of conflict is that this entire empowerment and trust and servant leadership comes with the dark side of the force, which is, if I become a decision maker, obviously my idea is the best idea. And can you imagine you have 9 people in a Scrum team, everybody believes the same. Nothing will be done. So that's why you need to, employ those conflict resolution techniques to make sure that people are focusing on the value delivery. But that's really, how you can go on and on with all the questions, because we can really prepare against them and then pass the exam right away. All right? Perfecto. So we talked about the learning model. Now, do you guys want me to give you a very honest, short recommendation in terms of exam preparation materials without any bias or around anything? I'm not going to mention any product. Is that okay? Yeah? Good. Okay. So learning cycle. What PMI say, the bare minimum you need is going to be the PEM Book 7, the Process Practice Guide, Agile Practice Guide. And I'm highlighting here the PEM Book 7. And the only reason for that, because the Process Practice Guide, PEM Book 6, is exactly the same, except that on Process Practice Guide, we no longer have knowledge areas. But everything else is the same. We still have all the ITTOs exactly the same, but we no longer have knowledge areas. So to some extent, it might work, but yeah, go with the Process Practice Guide. But on the same time, you can find in the markets trainings like boot camps. You can find exam prep courses like something online. You can have exam preparation books or any other program. Now, what I think we need to realize is that on one hand, you need to decide, are you a visual learner or like a reading person? So let's say you are a reading person, and I'm going to use the example of Rita Mukhaki, even though I'm not affiliated with Rita Mukhaki, okay? And I hope you guys know that Rita unfortunately died 10 years ago, but the company still exists and labeling books as Rita Mukhaki book. Anyways, so how does this actually been worked? So what Rita did is Rita used all the PMI materials to creating the preparation book. But what does this trying to say? If you have the Rita book, do you need to read all the PMI materials? Now the answer is no, because both of them are exactly the same. It's just explained slightly differently, which easier to adjust, easier to consume. And the reason for that, because all the PMI materials are written as Historica Britannica 1 to 15, and there's nothing wrong with that, because that's the universal formula to do anything and everything. Okay, so if your lovely chancellor or I don't know prime minister will give me a call and say, Gabor, can you come over and build a nuclear power plant for me? I will take all the PMI materials like this. Absolutely, I can do it because it will give me an idea. The problem is, for me, gathering requirements might take 2 years, whereas for the right person might take two months. Because technically, this is why everything you learned through PMI is the universal formula to any kind of project. We can translate it into anything, but eventually, the PMI materials and the preparation book is exactly the same. And unfortunately, the same thing goes with any kind of online course there. The online course is using the PMI materials, so that's also exactly the same. If you go to a boot camp, the boot camp is using the PMI materials, so that's also exactly the same. Also, the boot camp, the preparation course, and the preparation book, they are also exactly the same. So you do not need them in sequence, because you just keep repeating the same information and you spend awful lot of time and awful lot of money on something which is, keep repeating. Now, let me pause here for any questions, okay? If you don't have any question, can you give me a thumbs up if this was actually giving you the right clarity? But if you have a question, you can put it into the chat. Okay, a couple of people are tracking. That's very good. Okay, so keep in mind, are you a visual person? In that case, you go for an online course. If you are a reading person, go and get a book, okay? Now, which one is, can be, any preference? I would say you should go where the mainstream is in terms of, let's say, online courses. There are many other solutions in the market, but very few is really focusing on the know-how of how to get things done in terms of learning or in terms of solving questions, because still 95-96% of the materials are really focusing on what you need to learn, but this is not all about the learning itself. Okay. So online courses, yeah, something like a self-paced course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. going back to Marco in that case. But eventually, if you go to a 5 days boot camp, they push you through in 5 days like a train, like in 200 miles an hour. You know, gonna give you so much information, so you're almost going to, after 3 days, you go like, oh my goodness, this will be very difficult. But anyways, they are all the same. So you decide which one to go through, but again, be mindful. You do not need tons of materials, just a single learning material, like an online course you can go through, you can watch videos. Also in terms of the note taking, I mean, just to give you guys a highlight, if you're creating like, I don't know, 30, 40 pages of notes, just think about it. Am I really going to go back and reread them? And if the answer is no, I mean, again, remember, the goal is not that you learn everything by heart. That's why it's not a university studies that I really, you know, are doing a burst over the weekend and I'm going to learn 2 subjects and whatsoever. The problem is that the exams go against time, which means I'm not going to have an awful lot of time to spend, you know, 5-10 minutes with a single question, which maybe I'm going to figure it out. Oh, I have the experience and so on and so forth. But like, that's why you need to prepare it differently to make sure that you are getting there. All right. So before we're going to go into the deep end of this 8-week study plan, what we're going to do a drag and drop exercise, and that's something we're going to do together. All right. Now, what you need to know about the drag and drop exercise, on the exam, you're going to get maybe 3 or 4 or 5 of it. So not a huge deal, but PMI at least trying to do something different. And the key thing with this, that we know the content of the exam, but let's say how many mix and match you have to do, I don't know. Can be 3, can be 5, can be 100. But the problem with this, you need to make sure it's 100% correct to make sure it's scored 1 question equivalent, which means that this can be time consuming. So for example, if you have to do 5 mix and match, you make 3 correct, you're still going to have 0 points with this. So this can be might be time consuming. I would say if you're not able to solve it within 1 minute, you let it go and you go and answering more questions correctly, or you try in that sense, okay? So here is, let's say, the exercise, which is going to be that we need to move the project management methods to right next to the term, which is, so we need to move this lovely orange boxes, bricks of predictive agile to the blue boxes. And normally how I run this exercise. So there's always hopefully a brave volunteer who can do 1 predictive, 1 agile any given time. And that will, you know, create some extra learning, that will create some bonus learnings as well. So is there any brave volunteer who would like to get started, maybe?
Please feel free to raise your hand.
Oh, yeah,
We don't have candies. We don't have candies or some gifts, but knowledge is gift.
Or if there are no volunteers, that we can also do the same way, that I'm going to move them and you guys can move or put a P or an agile. Oh, there's one. Oh, Diana.
Yes, I'll start.
Very nice.
Very good. So Diana, can you give me 1 predictive, 1 agile as well, okay?
So predictive is team charter.
Very good.
Agile is value driven.
Amazing. Now, here is the bonus question for you. So real life, how we call the team charter real life in real projects? Do you know?
No.
So that's your project organization chart, okay? So if you would like to envision what the team charter is, that's the project organization chart. Okay, so basically a little diagram that, okay, here's the project manager, here is this lead, here is this person, that person. It's a little organization chart.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's what it is. Now, one more thing to learn on this one. So PMI say you can tailor out whatever you like, but unless the question says so, you cannot tailor out anything. So for example, there is a rule that there is no project without team charter either. And then the bonus question of the bonus question, do we have a team charter on Agile?
We have something similar. I don't know if we call it this way, but it's
Is it really necessary?
I would say yes, because you want to know who's doing what in the team, the project.
Very good. Good thinking. The PMI way of thinking says is not necessary. So then here is what they're going to say. In one hand, they're going to say no. Another way, they're going to say yes. And give you a good example. Does Scrum explain the need for a team charter? And the answer will be no. But when PMI will say, let's say an agile project manager and an agile project can have a team charter, obviously a no-brainer, we should have something written down. But the more you think about it, this small high-performing team, you realize that, okay, so this is 11 people, there is a business personnel, there is a stakeholder, so maybe 14 of us, maybe, do we really need, and we are all in the same, area, do we really need an organization chart for ourselves? And the answer will be no, especially because Scrum does not say the need of a team charter. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Very good. That's why it's actually been confusing. Thank you very much, Diana. Now you guys see, this is not super difficult. Any brave volunteer to do another predictive and another agile?
Gabor, just a small note from my side. This is really an example of how it can be a little confusing, because on the one side, you know that there is a product owner, there is a Scrum Master, there are the team members, and you're like, yes, I expect that there is a team structure even in Scrum project or Agile project setup, but the PMI books say no, there is no, because Scrum doesn't have this this guideline. It's not part of it. I think sometimes it can be tricky of how we practice it in companies and what is the standard.
Absolutely with you. It's super challenging. I'm going to give a bit of an explanation on that, but
Yes,
let's finish
thanks.
this exercise.
Yes.
And technically we're going to start with that afterwards. So, and I think
we had
maybe
one hand raised.
Marco,
Yes,
you raise your hand. Marco, you there?
Should I do the next pair, or is it?
Please.
Yeah.
Please.
You're next, Marco.
So-
You are next.
Agile is daily standard, and
Yeah.
I would say predictive is administrative closer.
Yes, very good. That's very good. That's very good. Yeah, no bonus learning. Nothing is came into my mind. Thank you, Marco, in that sense. Okay, we would like to do the next one predictive, one agile. Maybe Elena can do the next one.
It's still the easy. I think the last person will have it difficult, but let's try. So predictive is simplicity.
Okay.
And agile is charismatic leadership.
This is amazing, but it's exactly the other way around. So
oh my God.
Predictive will be charismatic leadership,
Really?
and agile will be simplicity. Now, let's go with the charismatic leadership. On agile, there is only servant leadership. No other leadership style exists as per the PMP exam.
Oh.
And that's because why? Because only servant leadership is going in line with empowerment and trust. And and on an agile project, you always have to have all these three pillars for the PMP exam. Otherwise, it will be not agile. So, for example, all the other leadership style, which going into leading by example, or all the other leadership style, now you already know that whenever you see it on a question, it's going to be always pointing into waterfall. And that's, I would say, one way of really grasping and fast tracking the learning for the PMP, because there are many things which are not there, and the same thing applies for simplicity. Waterfall is everything but not simple. Why? Because you always have to follow the rules, and the rules are 49 processes, 18 plans as project management plan, and 33 documents. If the question does not say so, you always have 49 processes, 18 plans, and 33 documents, which will be never simple.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thanks for the clarification. Yes.
No problem, no problem. Now we have 3 more left. Anyone would like to finish this off?
I can do it, yes.
Yes, Marco, you go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, predictive is lessons learned.
Well
And
done.
risk responsive strategy. But the last one is, it's clear, it's because it's only software development. But in my point of view, this is not true, because I'm doing strategy projects and we use also agile project management, let's say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
So you're saying that only software will be predictive and then the risk response is agile?
No, I would keep it. Yeah, agile is only software development, and the risk
Yeah.
is responsive. But from a practical point of view, it's not correct because we are using a agile, or our project approach is agile in strategy, and it's not software
Yeah.
development only.
Now, Marco, the only, and you are absolutely right, but for the PMP exam, you need to develop two containers in your head. One is for real life, and one is for the PMP exam. And the sooner you do that, the easier this will get, because I think if you start battling against what they say, it just makes our life difficult. Because here is another thing, and this is why it's really proven on the way. So when it says risk response strategy, and even the risk management. And here is the thing, PMI will, okay, do we have risk management on Agile? And PMI will say, yeah, we can have, but do we have a risk register? And you say, no, we don't. Now, why is that? Because software development as such will not go too much variety of how we're doing things, because we just keep writing code, keep writing code, keep writing code. You almost can say this is no operational work, but remember, we keep writing different code all the time. And the risk management on Agile and Scrum is, you remember the daily stand-up meeting, the last question, the third question is, what is holding you back to finish something today? That's your risk management. If it cannot be discussed within that 15 minutes, worst case scenario, you put it into a whiteboard, the Scrum Master will follow up, and hopefully it will be erased by tomorrow. That's it.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good question. And also what Marco pointed out is something very important, because the key secret sauce for the PMP is going to be you understanding the certain keywords, because there are keywords which are never used for waterfall or never used for Agile. Give you another example here. So we talked about this team charter, which definitely going to maybe, but for example, simplicity is always going to be Agile. Or going into daily stand-up, there is no daily stand-up on waterfall, and that is not value driven, even though we're delivering a value on waterfall. But waterfall is in this context is more managing the baselines, because we have a fixed scope and we just wanted to deliver that fixed scope, and not necessarily an continued value which go beyond the project and the team whatsoever. So very well done. Hope you guys like this exercise. This has actually been a great way to get an understanding, also a bit of a refresher of how to do things, what are the different stuff. So well done there. We have to, because of started running out of time. So we're looking into the 8-week study plan. And what I'm going to start with is exactly what Elena mentioned there. So I'm going to do a little bit of hiding first. So please bear with me for a second. So I'm going to do a little bit of hiding before I explain this part. Okay, so so before I explaining this, and what I'm going to mention to you is this. So PMI, I developed this lovely table. So what PMI did for the PMP exam, they separate the two things here. They separate the mindset, which is, I call it the logic, the way we think, and the way we delivering things, the know-how, okay? The know-how is completely separated. And it's separated for Agile and separated for Waterfall. Now, how does it looking like? Agile, 4 values, 12 principles. This is where we talk about the mindset. The great idea, how we are all co-located, working software, comprehensive documentation, all the 12 principles. But the all values, 12 principles, will deliver 0. Will not deliver anything. That's why you need a delivery vehicle, which is going to be Scrum. For the PMP exam, you need to do Scrum. You need to know Scrum inside and out. Little bit of Kanban and all the others that they exist, but you're not going to get question on those. Why is so important? Because PMI will say there is an Agile project manager on the exam in a question. But the problem is, can be an Agile project manager in a mindset level, yes, but Scrum does not recognize the role of a project manager. And you go like, now we are talking. That's why you need to be mindful. They're going to give you a scenario where Agile project manager works with a Scrum Master. They're looking into the backlog, implementing a change request, and creating a stakeholder report. Now, the problem is, any of the materials you buy everywhere around the globe, none of them will explain this, how to do it, because that's an obsolete idea by the best practice. So you keep searching for new materials, you keep searching for more answers, but instead, you need to keep this in mind that, oh, they're giving me a scenario which does not exist, but I'm still trying to answer it on a best practice level. Okay? Now that's why the PMP is so difficult. Now the same thing applies for PMBOK 7, for waterfall, where PMBOK 7 is great, almost zero meaning, if you're asking me. Great value proposition, amazing, but you go like, where is the critical path? Where is the 49 processes? Are we not having baselines? What about validating scope? What about lessons learned register? And I'm telling you already, without those, there is no project. There is no project. Still, we following the 49 processes, the 18 plans, the 33 documents. We always have an input. We always have something to do inside, and then we're having an output. Now, the focus of the exam is more on the confusing part, which is communication, stakeholders, leadership, and conflict management, which not going to go into the mechanics of how can I, compressing a schedule from crashing versus fast tracking. Very little of those, but still a separated idea. Now, and here you have the hybrid, which is an amazing idea. And this is where you have also the adaptive as well, falling into this category, which is the best of the best. Best of agile, best of waterfall. But the problem is, there is no know-how. And what I mean by that, have you guys seen a hybrid project management best practices guide published by PMI? There is none. There is no such a thing as a best practice for hybrid. So that's why when you're going to have a hybrid question on the PMP exam, there's only two ways of solving it. Either we're going to solve a hybrid question on Scrum way, or we're going to solve it on the waterfall way. No exception. And you go like, wow. Is this useful? Anyone has any questions? Yeah, feel free to ask me any questions, but that's, going back what Elena said, that's why the questions are so difficult for the PMP exam, because you always keeps feeling confused. And if you're not focused on yourself that, okay, they're going to make me confused anyways, but in the end, it's just, either this or either that. And that's why many people will suffer for 6 months, because in the end of the day, all of you guys project managers. You have at least 3 years of experience. So you have an idea how to run a project, right? And, the PMP will make you smarter. 20%. Okay, 20% improvement what you know today. So this is not a life-changing experience that I'm going to grow more hair or something like that, But what does that mean is that you just need to adopt the way they think. You need to focus to doing it, and then simply answering questions correctly with the short amount of time you have, knowing that it's never going to be perfect. And the more you started to let this sink in, you're not planning to say, I need to do another 3 hours of session of, learning the PMBOK 7 principles. Great, but the likelihood that you're going to get a question like that, very unlikely. But the comparison between Agile versus Waterfall will be more likely to come in there. All right? So let's go back to this lovely sharing, which started to be very messy, and I'm really sorry for that, but that's how it goes. Because you need to know this little table here, and I'm actually sharing more on those on my LinkedIn on that. But here is how I'm envisioning all this preparation, that you need to learn things in groups. And that is, again, a little bit simplifying things, make things your life easier, which I would say that you're learning you can learn Agile, Scrum in a single go. I would say less than a week, you can learn everything which is Agile and Scrum. And after that, you're going into blocks, which is Waterfall. Still, this idea of integration and change management, you need to focusing on that, because number one, on Waterfall, we start with 0 changes, and the project managers go to have 0 changes in the end. So you need to understand that in case there is a change, that how this process will evolve. Then learning together both baselines, so scope, schedule, cost. Now, why is that? Because all of them are connected together, especially the scope baseline, which is the heart of your project management plan. Everything is built around the scope. The way you're going to be screw up the project if you're missing something in your scope baseline. And in terms of that mechanics of, gathering requirements, having the scope statement, having the WBS, having the baseline, the same step-by-step approach is created for schedule and also for cost as well. So the more you kind of envision this, trying to grasp it together, the easier this will get. Then you go into people domain. I like to combine together communication, resource, stakeholders. And the key emphasize is the difference between communication and stakeholders, because communication will only define what we communicate, how we communicate, when we communicate. Because the whom we communicate will be always on the stakeholders. Communication has nothing to do with the stakeholders. They're just going to be labeled as general stakeholders out there. And then everything else is, in the end, risk, quality, procurement. You're going to get questions on those on the exam, but very little, especially on that procurement area. 4 or 5 hours explanation, any material I look, or 40 pages, but you're not going to get questions on difference between different contract types, but you still need to go through that to make sure of an understanding. But the make or buy analysis, or how you do the RFQ process is always something nice to have. And then on a hybrid, make sure there's no cherry picking, only best practices. And since I keep it to the end, because there is no material, so we all need to figure out the hybrid. We need to practice the hybrid, because PMI will tell us that I can combine Agile, Waterfall, great. But again, we on that sense, they not even tell us, because how hybrid looking like? Hybrid is going with, let me show you this very quickly. So hybrid is interpreted by PMI in a way that, so you still have the big building blocks, but what is actually been exchanged from Waterfall to Agile is never set in stone. So you decide, or the project team will decide with the project manager. So even on the hybrid, you need to have some type of project manager, some type of lead. Otherwise, this will not work. So if I go, so this is my other learning material, where I'm here, I can show you this. So this is how hybrid is looking like in the eyes of PMI. So I still have the big building blocks, but I lift and shift a certain building block into something else. So I can exchange execution to Scrum, but it's not set in stone. It's planning and execution, or even monitoring, controlling, and execution, because eventually in a hybrid project, it's really making sense. You have a start and an end date, by the way, which to some extent it needs to be closed. But again, this is not set in stone, is completely up to you, or you're going to get the answer, it depends, because this Scrum can be a Kanban or whatever that is, because that's how PMI envisioning this. All right. So in my opinion, do not spend awful lot of time on this. Through the question, you're going to learn anyways what needs to be learned. You just need to understand what are the differences in Scrum and also of Waterfall. That's all that is, just to simplify. Simplify, and do not spend 4 hours on this every day. Good 2 hours will be plenty enough. Okay? How we are tracking so far? All good? Sorry, sometimes I press the play button and I go like 200 miles an hour, but hope it's still useful. Very good. Okay. Now, so we're having, let's say, an idea, and then the other idea you need to create yourself is going to be this, an exam strategy. Why? Because nobody can do 180 questions every single day. Nobody can. You can't. I mean, if now is your idea that I'm going to do full mock exams every day, good luck with that. And also just to let you know that technically there is no recipe which says that you need to do 3,000-4,000 questions. I came across people who passed the exam. One guy said, I was too afraid to do a full mock exam, so I never did one before the exam. Passed the exam. Or I did a course, let's say by Andrew Ramdale. I didn't do any other questions and I passed the exam. Now, all this showing to me, and then there's another guy who's doing, 4 or 5 different simulators, millions of questions, also passing the exam. But it's also showing to me is all about that you adopting the way of thinking. The sooner you did do that, your score will go up as high as possible. I mean, anything above 80% will be super difficult, because again, the time constraint and the pressure which is represented is going to be difficult. But again, 75, 85% you're looking at. So you need to break this down. And I would say why I like this strategy, because on the exam, especially if you go to a test center, and please go to a test center, you are allowed to have 2 times 10 minutes break. 2 times 10 minutes, which is not going to go through your time, which means that the idea that you do 60 questions at any given time is the best strategy you can. Because if you break this down this way, is that so the 180 questions is no longer like a big beast out there. Instead of I do 3 times 60 questions in a row. And that will go like, wow, that's way much more easier. And what does this mean in terms of the exam? So you have 230 minutes, yeah? 230 minutes will go in a way that okay. So I would say that so first 60 question on the exam, you allocate 90 minutes. Why? Because the first 60 will take most of the time for everyone. Not just you, everyone will take most of the time there. And after that, for remaining 60, your time cap is 70 minutes. So what you need to really practice at home is that how can I do 60 questions in less than 70 minutes. If you're able to master that and you score as high as you can, you are going to be ready and pass the exam without worrying about time. Because the idea of some of you might have and say, I'm going to measure my average time for each question. Don't do it. And extra stress completely doesn't make sense. Think about like a bucket of time. Think about, let's say, a time allocation, because you need to practice this. If you're not doing any questions today, you're not going to make 60 questions in 70 minutes. So you need to build up like a strength, which will go with, 30, 40, 50, 60 questions within weeks, to same as like if I would like to run 5 miles altogether. All right? Because you need to break it down. And this is your pace. That's the pace. The only thing you need to focusing on. All the other things are, just too much stress overall for the exam prep. All right? So the key learning from this messy slide is that trying to learn things in groups, have an exam strategy, and just be aware that in terms of PMI separates the mindset and the delivery. And the caveat is for hybrid, there is no definition of how to do it. Because technically hybrid is just so much permutation, so many combinations can be there. Okay, but how is going to look like one by one? So here is your lovely plan.
Gabor,
Yeah.
there is just one question from Marco saying test center is better than online.
Okay. So if you do it online, you're also going to get your break, no problem there. But you need to remember that you cannot leave this angle of the camera of the laptop, okay? You cannot look up, you cannot look down. You have to show around the room. So 5 minutes earlier, you clean up the room like this is not going to be good enough. And I equally hear good stories and bad stories, okay? The worst story I heard was a guy forgot to plug in the laptop charger. Halfway through, sent a message to the proctor guy, I'm going to go away just for a second, just plug it in, otherwise it's gone. You have to understand. And the guy said, okay, no problem. So the guy went back, exam canceled, exam failed. Sorry for that. That's it. You violated the rule. Cannot help you. So if you can go to a test center, the best possible option you can have in terms of a break, you're not just leaving the room, you can go outside of the building. Having a fresh air, if it's not raining, is even better. But go to a test center. Okay? Very good question. Now, so let's have a look into this 8 weeks plan. So the first week is going to be the learning. So this is the learning cycle on the previous model, which I showed to you. You guys will have it on the recording as well. And the second one is showing here the validation cycle. So week 1, you go agile values, principles, Scrum, roles, artifacts, planning, plenty enough. Within a week, you can learn all this, no problem. Then week 2, you go waterfall, change management, baselines. Again, the goal is that you're not spending, let's say, you're not going super in depth, because PMI will not going to ask you all this, but you have a good understanding of everything which is going through there. Then people, communication, waterfall, hybrid, plus you started to do questions as well, which is as little can be as 20 questions. Why 20 questions? Because you need to build the strength. You need to start with somewhere. If you do today, you do 0, tomorrow you're trying to do 100, you're going to sweat very, very hard, and you might going to give up very quickly. So let's have a good 20 questions. Just let's see that whatever you consumed, and then go there and see how it goes. Now, week 5, you exchanging all your learning time. So 80% of the time you do questions, 20% of the time you do learning. So you spend 80% doing questions on a daily study basis. And then the recap means that so let's say you do 20 out of 30, good score, by the way, and you check those 10 while you miss them. Then during the recap, you go and see there is a pattern. I need to go back to risk management. And on the same day, you go and try to educate yourself again or revisit something. That's what the recap is. But the key, most important thing, end of this week, you do a full mock exam, and the goal, you score 50%. Now, my question to you, let's say you study 4 weeks, you score 50%. Are you going to be happy about that? If you're going to be happy about that, give me a thumbs up. If you're not happy, a thumbs down, because I'm really interested the way you think. So if you're happy with 50% after 4 weeks, give me a thumbs up. If you're not happy, can you give me a thumbs down?
There is unfortunately no thumbs down, but maybe surprised or something. Yes.
Okay, that's very good. That's very good. Okay, Marco there, Thomas there. Okay, very good. Now, let me ask you this. So let's say after 4 weeks of studies, you're going to score 70%. Do you know how much time you need to prepare for this exam? I'm telling you, 2 more weeks or even less. 2 more weeks or even less, because that's the overall goal, to get to an 80%. So if you score 50%, that's the best place you can be. So do not feel discouraged. You know, I've been there. I spent awful lot of time to learning into this, and you're gonna get discouraged, but do not get discouraged. If you already at like 70%, that means that you do not need another month. You just need 2 more weeks. You book your exam, and then 2 weeks from time, and you go and sit on the exam and pass. Think about it. You're never going to reach 100%. 70% is already a very good understanding. You just need to be, doing more and more practice. Within a week, if you never score below 72, 75, then you are absolutely ready to go to the exam, because the numbers don't lie. And what I mean by this is in line with my other way of thinking, that what will determine your preparation readiness? Is it me telling you you're ready? You booking a call with me and say, Gabor, this is what I did. Am I ready? I don't know. I feeling, excited. I feeling, comfortable with Agile. But what's your testing score, my friend? And you score 50, 60, you are not ready. You can go in and we'll see how it goes, but you might risking another failure. And remember, you pay once, and PMI say you can do 3 times within a year, but every single time you need to pay. So it's not like I pay once and I go give it a try. Oh, my second time is going to be better. You have to pay. You have to pay for the second time. So make the long story short, if you're focusing on your testing score instead of how you feel, what you know, that will make your life easier, because the testing score is a black and white result, black and white explanation. Do I know this or I don't know this? And if your exam 2 weeks away and you score just 50%, you better pay the extra money and you move your exam, because otherwise you're not going to get there. Okay? So back to my original question, halfway through scoring 50%, blessed space you can be, because what is the goal? From this point onwards, 4 weeks to improving to 80%. And I think, the 50%, that's 90 out of 180, sorry. And this is 140 out of 180. So what is the delta? You need to improve 50 questions correctly answered. Can you improve 50 questions within 4 weeks? And the answer will be yes. Okay. Now, so what we need to do, as you guys can see, sorry,
Gabor, there are 2 questions. I'm so sorry. There are 2 questions. One is saying, in your experience, is it advisable to make an intermediate certification before the PMP, such as CAPM, ACP, and then PMP?
Don't do it. I mean, if you become a CAPM, every CAPM goal is to become a PMP one day. If you have 3 years of experience, don't do the CAPM, because the CAPM is for whom? If I'm a carpenter today and I wanted to go project management, I will do a CAPM. So don't do it. It will have zero advantage to you. Even the CAPM content is different from the PMP. Give you a good example. Business analysis has 40 dedicated questions on the CAPM exam. 40. Now on the PMP is not even recognized. The CAPM is technically 3-4 times easier than the PMP, but it will not give you any extra advantage. You can get, with this formula, you can get the CAPM also in 8 weeks. But after, zero added value, if you're asking me. ACP is great, but that's more focused on Agile, where Scrum is just one pillar of it. You need to go in depth in extreme programming, Kanban, test-driven development, and all the others. So again, for the PMP, you just need to know Scrum. Whereas Agile, so the ACP is again very specific. It depends on your industry, but some industries are not even recognizing it as they recognize in the PMP. I hope, Maren, I answer your question correctly, or the value. Yeah.
The second question is, where do I find realistic mock exams?
So, do I have a product? I do have a product. But think about this way. So, who has the closest to the exam is going to be the PMI study hall, because that's coming from the source. Nobody has closest questions than what is coming from PMI. So how we all creators creating our own questions? Well, we sit down and we think about it, or we get someone else's and rewriting it. That's the reality. So at the end of the day, I can give you a great solution, which I do have a product on that. But at the end of the day, PMI study hall is the closest you can get to the exam. Nobody has anything close to that. We are creating our own questions. So I would say you can go big brands out there. Yeah, happy to discuss that offline. Let's put it this way. Because there are lots of, I mean, here is the thing. Don't go with free questions unless you know where this is coming from. So for example, if I'm giving you access to free test, you can trust that is at least up to date, because most of the free questions are reflecting the old exam. And a great way to looking at how many ITTO questions you see there. If you see 20 calculation questions, absolutely no brainer. You're never going to get those on the exam. So you're spinning the wheel and you're not moving forward. So it doesn't make sense to doing it. Okay, good. Now, so you go with 30 questions, then you upgrade yourself to doing 40, doing 50, and then in the end of the week, you do a full mock exam. So technically, you're going to do around 3 full mock exams, should be plenty enough. In these variations, or you can make adjustments, because what you need to do very well with your study plan is that it is just a guide. Now, every person learns differently, every circumstance is differently. I would say at least this will give you a way of doing things, because the next thing, if I go down, so how many days you need to study? 5 to 6 days. You need to have 1 day off to avoid the burnout, at least 1 day off. But how you do this 5 to 6 days? So I have students, they do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off, they're doing Friday and Saturday. Or there are people who do Monday till Friday, they're having weekend off. Because altogether, what you need to look into is, let's say, having a good 90 minutes to 2 hours on those study days. So if you do 5 days by 2 hours, you have to do 10 hours per week. And some of you might say, oh, that's too little. Well, experience shows that, I mean, you can push a lot, and everyone has lots of capacity to do so. But the problem is that most people go to burnout because you're not leaving enough time to make sure it's all sinking in. And why you need to leave time to make sure all sinking in? Because half of this stuff you already know at work, but you do it differently, you call it differently. As we talked about it with Marco, you need to have 2 containers in your head, so you need to be really focused. And trust me, I would say 1 week away from the exam, you're going to study every day. All right? You're going to study every day. But don't do it in the beginning, because you're going to kill yourself in the end. I'm not promising you can do this in 4 weeks or even 3. Because still, let's say if somebody is without any work, or unfortunately or something like that, those people, following the same thing here. If you spend 4, 6, 8 hours, it does not guarantee that you're going to be able to comprehend and understand all the stuff, because there's so much content to go through, so many concepts, and then it takes time to actually be practicing those questions and scoring very well. And then as soon as you leave the scoring, your key navigator, that how my score is going upwards, is going to eliminate the maybe, or somebody say that I see that, somebody whatever post I see that. So make sure that's the thing.
I apologize for interrupting. We have just 10 minutes until the end of the event. If we could finish here in some 5 minutes, it would be great. If we can.
Yeah, I only need 5 more minutes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Good. So the final thing here is going to be a little secret sauce here. So if I go with 5 days studies, 2 hours, trying to split your day into 2, having a morning session, having an afternoon session will make your life easier. Why is that? Because, for example, if I do a morning session before work, for example, an hour studies, whatever the universe challenge is giving to you, and you end up home 8 p.m. or even later with a glass of wine or a beer, and a new Netflix show is starting, we all know what's going to happen. And I'm telling you, you better go and have some rest, because you need to be focused. If you're studying and then 2 days later, I not even remember what I learned on Monday, you did something, but it was not have a real effect in that. So yeah, any questions before I would like to do one questions together, but before I do that, is there any question? If you don't have any question, can you give me a quick thumbs up in the chat? Okay, thank you. There is a 1-pager format which you can download for free through my newsletter. I think Elena will share it later on. Yeah, feel free to do that. It will give you at least an idea which you can modify it and having it in your own way, but that will be fine. But let's have a look and doing a question together. And before we go in there, 2 things to remember: PMI categorizing questions, and they also categorizing as per the pattern. There are 2 patterns. Pattern 1, best practice question. Pattern 2, specific question. Pattern 1, best practice. What is the characteristic? What is not? What should you do first? What should you do next? Simply, PMI interested that what do you know about the process, how you can handle it. So it's really focusing on definitions in that case. And if you have a real problem of 2 weeks delay, that's a specific problem. So for example, knowing that the 4 values of Agile will not solve a 2 weeks delay. Okay, a little bit of an extra information there. So let's do this. Yeah, can you guys can still see the screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just not able to see you guys. Okay. All right, so here is the first one. You are leading an agile project for a new IT initiative in the company that will get a lot of visibility. You have to be disappointed that the quality of the product delivered for the last several sprints has been poor. What is the best option that the team should take? Now, before you start tackling this type of questions, here are some ropes for you on the right-hand side. And that's something you can also put as a mantra. First things you look, is it a waterfall? Is it agile? And trying to do next steps elimination technique. And the reason why you always not trying to categorize every question, because remember, when you are at question 147, 30 minutes left, you still want to do it, correctly. So let's do that. If you know the correct answer, you can put it into the chat as 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D. I'm also going to break it down for you guys. Pen. Okay, we have a pen now. All right, answers are coming in. So first things first, what you do here. So is it waterfall? Is it agile? So it says looking for keywords. It says agile, new initiative company will get lots of visibility. Yeah, nothing to do here. But disappointed the quality of the product delivered the last several sprints has been poor. What is the best option the team should take? All right. So a couple of things has been mentioned here. Agile quality, it has been poor. Okay, let's go that this is an agile question so far. Now let's have a look into the answers. Ensure transparency of the work progress by displaying Kanban board in a team war room. Brilliant answer, but if you go agile way, until this point of Kanban board is all good, but this one says a team war room. Now in agile, there is no team war room. Now the secret sauce with this type of questions, if one part is correct, the second is incorrect, now the whole thing is incorrect. Okay, so A is out immediately. Okay, trust the best practice. Do not see, okay, this is how we do it real life. Great, but you do in PMP exam. Hold retrospective more frequently. Aha. On Scrum, the following rules, which means sprint plan, sprint planning, sprint development, sprint review, sprint retrospective. Can I have more? No, you can't. Can stakeholders request more? Yeah, they can, but we never give them more. Why is that? Because the following rules, or we call the same on waterfall processes, but again, Scrum is also following rules, so I cannot have more retrospective. One sprint, what retrospective? That's the mantra you can envision in your mind. Done. Ensure team using test-driven development. Maybe. Remind the team about the importance of agile mindset. Now, you guys remember on the previous page I mentioned to you best practice or specific question. Now here, here is a problem, quality problem. Have you think about the, agile values one, working software over comprehensive documentation, or like, yeah, but how does this going to help us? It's not going to help us. Okay, so I would say best answer will be C, which means it's going to be a test-driven development. And the one thing you need to keep in mind, do not even judge the answer. Is it really correct, yes or no? Is it true or not? Because that's where PMI will also trick you, because they can give you all 4 correct answers or all 4 incorrect answers. But in that case, you need to find one which is the most incorrect. Now, going back into the overall, so correct answer was C in this case. How can I do that? Oh yeah, correct answer is D because of the test-driven development. But what you need to focusing on is there any other way you're going to find the correct answer which is not in the explanation, and that's how you're really going to learn for the exam. All right. So with that, I'm going to give back the ball to Elena, and I hope you guys like. No, I disregard this one. Hope you guys like this little explanation. Sometimes I went a little bit too press the play button and talk about so much, but yeah, next time we're gonna do more questions in that sense. Okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah. This is
Elena,
amazing, and I can imagine I can imagine that people who would like to hear more questions, you have also a study group, so they can contact you. They can come through LinkedIn. They can find the free study group you have going on. So thank you so much for this really like logical and very like it's a guideline for how you can pass the PMP. It's a very structured way. Here, some colleagues are celebrating, finding some new tips and tricks. I will just share you the last slides so that we can catch up with one constraint, namely the time of today. So considering that the time we have 3 minutes, I will try to be a little bit faster. So we have one Mentimeter going on, it's activated. The link is in the chat. Please feel free to give us a rating. It's important for Gabor, for us to know for the future what if you like this event, if we should organize some further ones. So please it's 5 questions. It will not take so much time. Yes, to answer them. We have some next events. There are some further events which are getting planned. As we said, we organize 2 online events per month and 1 face-to-face. The next face-to-face is happening next week on Monday in Darmstadt, in the Hochschule Darmstadt. And then we have on the 11th of October a topic on or an event on denial management as a gateway to enhance organizational performance with Ahmed Al Zain. So feel free to take a look also on the PMI -gc.de event website. So please don't follow what I just pronounced. See how it's written here. You can find even further events. And this is our group once more. So in the Darmstadt group, we are 6 members. If you want to join us, join another team, feel free to contact us to see what we have been doing. And using this link, you can join some further activities. Now, the PDU code is the following one. This is a 0. This is an O. It's a little bit tricky one. I will write it in the chat box. C421. Thomas, I can imagine for the video we are gonna delete this this part. We're gonna skip this or maybe cover it up. So that's it from my side as well. Thank you once more for everyone joining. I hope you, if you didn't copy the video code, it will be available also on the email, which we will share with you. Gabor is gonna send us the presentation. We're gonna send it to everyone who was here today. The video recording you will also get. So it's really left to say thank you so much, Gabor, for this really well structured and really presentation with so much information. I'm sure that there was for everyone something useful. You have some clapping hands, you have some comments saying thank you. So thank you also from the side of Local Group Darmstadt. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you in some other event.
Yeah, it was my pleasure to being here and give you guys a different direction, different way of thinking about that to make it happen. So in that case, all of you, if you even just start today, beginning of November, first week November, maybe second, you can get it done even though you just start today. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This has been very good motivation for Mohammed because I know he has around November, mid-November, his exam. So all the best, Mohammed.
Yes. Yeah, he's under pressure.
Yes, no pressure, no pressure. Now it's on recording, but no pressure. Bye, everyone. Have a nice evening or have a nice day, and see you some next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Nice evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.